show is Comments, and we're talking to Dr. Henry Ponder at Fisk University, and the topic is Fisk University, a report card. And Doctor, during this last segment of our program, I'd like to talk about a very ambitious plan that you've got in terms of increasing the renovation activities on your campus. I think that you've got a new renovation plan that calls for some $50 million. And perhaps, since many of the people in the Nashville area will probably be a part of the effort to support that plan, why don't you give us some information in reference to what you're trying to do with that plan and where you're trying to bring the institution from and where you're trying to take it to?
Well, Dr. Haney, what we're trying to do simply is to put Fisk University back where it rightly belongs, and that is a leadership role in higher education. And in order to do that, there are certain things that we must have. I mentioned the scholarship funds earlier. If we're going to have a leadership role, we must get the academically talented youngsters to come to Fisk University and then give them good experiences while they're there. Another part of that program is to increase the salaries of the teachers and other workers so that we don't have to worry about them wanting to leave. They love Fisk, so we want to pay them so that they will stay. Not only that, but what we're really trying to do is to make it so that every professional, academic professional in the country will want to come to Fisk. We want them to seek out Fisk University. And to do that, we need distinguished chairs and we need salaries that will take care of that. Now, that's a general kind of thing. We need new programs. For example, this is a very small globe now. You can fly from one side of it to the other in a short period of time now. So it's no longer America. You must think globally. So we want international curricula so that students who graduate from Fisk University in the next 5 years, we want to be able to guarantee that they have a proficiency in some language other than English. This is the only country where we think that English is the only language in the world. We need to change from that. We're slowly changing and we want to do it. Those are general kinds of things. We want some research institutes. Now, the buildings that we have, we must renovate our buildings, and by any modest estimate, it would take over $10 million to bring our buildings up to standard. And if you're going to have a great institution, your buildings have to look good so that people can do it. So that's one thing. But in addition to that, there are some other buildings that we need on our campus. For example, we need a gymnasium, recreation, health, and physical education complex. And we need in this a swimming pool, we need a bowling alley, we need weightlifting equipment. We need that. We must have that. So that's one building that we need. Another building that we need is one that will serve as a fine arts building. Now, Fisk University, been noted for
Speak to that, Doctor, in reference to the fine arts.
Since the Jubilee Singers, and that is 1871. And one of the ironies of, I think, of higher education is that an institution so steeped in the arts does not have, and has never had, a fine arts building.
And it has some of the best art collections, black art collections in the world.
That is correct. See, so we must get one of those. That just has to be high on our agenda so that we can have a place where we can exhibit our art, where we can have performances that we need, singing performances, dancing performances, plays, all of those kinds of things. So that's one building. Another new building that we need is a science building. Now, our science building is very old. It is too small. It is inadequate. And we can patch it up from now until, and it will not be what it should be. Some youngsters come from high schools with better science buildings than we have at Fisk University. Now, I don't say that to be negative. I say that positively, which says we need to give youngsters who come to us more than they had at home. So we need a science building, a 4-story building that will take care of all of the sciences that we have. You put all of that together, and when you get some distinguished chairs involved in that, and you get a couple of research centers involved in that, you come up with a price tag of over $1 million. Now, some people would say, that's very ambitious. It's only ambitious if you are thinking small. And I call attention to the fact that institutions in this country are having annual campaigns of over $100 million. We're talking about $50 million over a 5-year period. So if you look at that, we're talking about $5 to $6 million a year. We think that $10 to $6 million a year. We think that that's in reach. We believe that the community is ready to support Fisk University, and that community is not just the Nashville community, but the national community. And we have students coming from all over this globe, and we simply want to give them the experiences necessary, and that's what it takes to do it.
Doctor, finally, as an educator, there's a real burning question in terms of the black community. I think every time that there's a conference held, there's always the question of leadership deficit. During the last couple of minutes that we have for this program today, why don't you speak to this issue of the need for black leadership and what we ought to do and what black leaders ought to be about? Again, I think we ought to add that not only are you the president of Fisk University, but you're also president of Alpha Phi Alpha, one of the service organizations within the community. And so from that perspective, why don't you say something about leadership?
Well, that is true, and let me say that I have spent most of my adult life in higher education. That's number one. And in that, the Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated is an organization that is for all of these good things that we've talked about: scholarship, leadership, service, and all of that. I'm also president of the National Association for Equal Opportunity in Higher Education, and that is strictly out doing something for education. Now, the leadership is something that I think we must address, and I'd like for the general public to come to understand that when we talk about black leadership, we're not talking about a person. There's not one Jewish person that is the leader of all of that group. So there's not one that's going to be leader of black people. Black people are going to have many leaders, and there are places for leadership at all levels. PTA, be president of the PTA Association and make sure your youngsters get what they need there. Be president of the neighborhood organization to make sure that you get crime out of the neighborhood. That's the kind of leadership that we need now from black people, and if we don't get it, we're going to be in awful trouble moving on. So don't look to just people in higher education. Look all over for people who are going to lead, and we need that.
Very good. Let me thank you, Dr. Punder, for giving us this information, not only about black higher education, but about leadership and all of those other things today. And let me again encourage you to tune in again next week for another informative edition of Comments.